Everyone is doing well today. This morning I have with me our CPS ongoing worker, Emily Kennedy. She has been with us since October of 2020. As usual, when we have new workers, because we are a very small agency, it's kind of like trial by fire. We kind of throw them into the process, but she's done a phenomenal job at doing that. And she's really blossoming into what I would call an excellent CPS worker. I brought her this morning to speak with you about the transition of CPS ongoing services to something new, which is being called as in-home services. So with that, I'll go ahead and let Emily step up, and if you have any questions, then I'm going to stay up here with her and we can answer those together.
Yeah, so like Chad said, the state is kind of restructuring how we do CPS ongoing, and there we go. So yeah, the state is restructuring how we do CPS ongoing, and we're transitioning it into something called CPS in-home services. And so basically the main goal of CPS in-home services is to prevent the entry into foster care, as well as to lower the risk of future maltreatment of these kids. So we get the CPS in-home cases after the CPS investigator finishes their investigation or family assessment, and they determine that the family could benefit from further services. And so one of the main kind of platforms that we use for CPS in-home is collaboration with the family. And so they're really stressing family engagement, identifying individualized needs, and just kind of working on service goals for the family. So CPS in-home can actually take 3 different kinds of tracks. So the first one is called family support, and those are for more short-term assessment cases. And so with those are the families that are kind of already voluntarily in services, and we're just monitoring progress and being a support for the family and a link to additional services if needed. And so then there is in-home, which is basically the most similar to what was previously CPS ongoing. These are for kids who have a higher risk of entry into foster care or future maltreatment. And so with these families, we are identifying the risks that the children are in, and also identifying safety factors and protective capacities of the parents and the family. And so with those cases, we're developing service plans, and the service plans kind of explain to the family what we see the risks as, what we're asking the family to do, and what we're going to monitor progress as. So these are the ones that I work with the most, because if they're coming in from the investigation or family assessment, these are families that really need extra services to ensure that the kids are as safe as possible. And so we're collaborating with the family to get that buy-in so that they understand why services are needed and that they can kind of verbalize how these services are going to help them moving forward. And then finally, the last one is dual CPS and foster care. And so these are cases where maybe one or more child was determined to be too vulnerable and was placed into care, and then other children in the home were deemed okay to remain in the home. And so the foster care worker would work with the child in care as well as the family, and then myself, the in-home worker, would work with the children remaining in the home and the family, and that would look more like the in-home services that I just described. And so with that, the state has also identified like 3 different safety scenarios. And so those scenarios kind of dictate how we administer services, what we focus on, and how we help the family. So safety scenario 1 is where the children are remaining in the home with the parents, and we're providing services in the home to kind of just increase the safety of the home. Scenario 2 is going to be where the children are placed with a relative or a kin caregiver with the goal of returning home within 6 months. And so these are scenarios where maybe the house isn't the safest at the time or the family isn't the safest, but in those 6 months we're going to work on improving safety so that children can return home. And then finally, safety scenario 3 is where we determine that the children are too at risk, and our main goal is that children are with caregivers long term. And so throughout these cases, regardless of the track or the safety scenario, we're constantly identifying safety factors, protective capacities, and the risk of future maltreatment to determine where the children are and how we're going to guide our services. And every family is obviously very different, so we're constantly adapting to the family's needs and what works for the family. But the structure of in-home that I kind of just described gives us a good foundation moving forward to kind of build upon with these families. Anything to add?
Yeah, and so basically, it's a lot of information that we're trying to drill down into like 3, 4, 5 minutes. But if you can remember back to what we've been talking about a lot about the family first funding that's coming down, that's what's driving all of this. So basically, we're taking what was once known as CPS ongoing and the prevention services that some agencies, not all agencies, were providing, and taking those two avenues and bringing them into one central lane known as in-home services. Now, it's also important to point out that the in-home services model is kind of confusing, and that's one of the things that some of the agencies are pointing out, is that we're not actually at the local level service providers. We link families to services. We work with the family, as Emily mentioned. We engage with them, and we link the family to that community services in order to keep the kids out of care. Yes, ma'am.
It's almost like early intervention is what we're, is it not? It's looking at a situation and saying, okay, if we get here early enough, we get them the services they need, foster care, which I guess was what you were describing as scenario 3 ultimately in your description. Scenario 3 ends up being foster care. Is that correct, or was I?
Scenario 3 is like a foster care's in-home services dual case,
Gotcha.
Where you may have one sibling that has come into foster care,
Right.
and we're working with the family to maintain the other kids in the home
Right.
to prevent them from coming into care.
Right.
It's what we used to call early prevention.
Right.
And what I see happening here in Floyd is we'll be looking at a lot of those CPS referrals that come in that don't quite meet that level for us to get involved because they're not actually a valid complaint, but we'll go out to the family and offer prevention services to engage them in hopes of preventing any type of CPS intervention in the future, which might result in a foster care placement.
Right, and then this scenario 2 was like family foster care, having a grandparent or aunt or uncle or, older sibling or whatever the case may be.
And we like to call that, we strive to call that diversionary arrangements.
Right.
We try to get away from the verbiage of placement.
Correct.
Because that makes someone think that you've taken custody.
Right.
But when we do a diversionary arrangement, the kids are remaining in the legal custodian's custody, but we are coordinating a diversionary arrangement to keep them in a safe place but out of foster care.
Right, and then, there are so many services in our communities regionally throughout the New River Valley. This is such a wonderful program because ultimately, if a home is still the place to be able to help them make that a safer place, ultimately is what you want. I mean, it's best for everybody involved, so. Good work.
So it's still in its early stages, but you'll probably be hearing a lot about it, and there'll be some upcoming changes taking place.
All right.
Just one real quick clarification. On scenario 2, at the end of 6 months, the child is placed back into the family setting. Is that done on a full-time basis, or is that done like, all right, we're going to do this and 3 days a week at first, or does each individual case drive that?
It's a case-by-case basis. We do strive for the 6-month time limit to get the kids reunited with their families. There are instances, though, where it's not possible to do that reunification, and in those cases, we work with those individuals we've identified to divert the kids to petitioning for custody. So at least if the kids can't go back into the custody of their parents typically, then they'll go into another family member or close friend's custody for the ongoing immediate future.
But the idea is that by the 6 month time, the child's back full-time with the parents or in the home.
Right.
So you could actually have at 5 months of full trial period, if y'all deemed it necessary for the child to at least, maybe spend a day or two and see what kind of reaction.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And we often at times use court orders and things like that to kind of drive the process. But the ultimate goal is to just keep kids out of care.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And keep them with their families.
Right. Right. Now, by and large here in Floyd, what we have mostly issues with are substance abuse. And so those are some challenging issues to deal with, especially with the types of substances that unfortunately individuals are becoming addicted to. So. Any other questions or?
Thank you for that very thorough explanation.
You did a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We skipped monthly disbursements to get Chad back to work. So then we had some additional ones this morning.
That's the little power bill.
That's great.
Let's see, you might want to go back and pick up the approval of monthly distribution.
Great line.
There's grapevine.
Please excuse me, Ted and I have been trying to work out a time to get together for some time now.
Yeah,
We're right here, we're gonna grab you, we're gonna pick a time in a day. So, he's a very busy person.
Doors open for a motion to approve the monthly disbursements. If anybody has any questions.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion?
Go ahead and call it. Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Clifton.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes.
And Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All right, unanimous. Thank you, Lana. Thank you for going back and picking that up for us.
We move down to yours. We got about 10 or 12 minutes now.
So you would like to move down to,
Yeah.
what's that, my report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're skipping down to item 7 for a minute. So you'll see item 7A in your packet. And again, hats off to Cindy for making this happen. But this is the proclamation recognizing April 18th through 24th as National Crime Victims Week. And of course, you will see attached the document related to that. And to express our sincere gratitude for those victims and crime survivors who have turned personal tragedy into a motivating force to improve our response to victims of crime and build a more just community, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Open the floor for a motion. Move approval of proclamation.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Anything else?
All right. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Ms. Kipperman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous on that?
I meant to send you an email to try to get proclamation for National Dispatchers Week. And that's what this week is. too. Or it's this coming week.
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Because, dispatchers is a very, very important job in the sheriff's department. I think we should recognize them.
All right, so the next item of business we have is 7B. Appointment to the Floyd County /Town Economic Development Authority School Board Strategic Planning Subcommittee for a 2-year term. Mr. Booth. And there is nothing in your packet. Yes.
Mr. Booth, don't say nothing, we're going to nominate. You want to keep that?
That would be fine, at least till December anyway. After that, we'll just have to see what happens.
Somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
I'm gonna make you sweat on that one. Motion and a second.
Okay.
Dr. Gilstrap?
Thank you. All right, Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder. Let's see, Ms. Goodman.
Yes.
And Mr. Booth.
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. And Mr. Durham.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Booth abstains. All right. And you let me know when you'd like this, Mr. Sheriff, if you want us to stop for a minute and let
Yeah, I would get Brian back to work, you know, he earned his keep this morning.
He's still right, he might not be ready.
Okay, or you want us to
I
wait?
hadn't seen him. You come on.
All right.
I thought he'd moved. I hadn't seen him going up and down the road for a while.
Been working. Everybody doing all right this morning?
Sir.
Just here to check in there, tell you kind of where we're at. We got two dispatchers that we've hired currently. Both of them are in training, doing well, so everything in dispatch is filled. We still got the one current law enforcement position that I haven't. We've got somebody hired for it, but haven't started them yet. Where the academy don't start till June. Also, finally, the jail has released some trustees. So only on the roadside crew, so I've had them 2 days here they're here today and we're here just a couple days ago. So I've got them helping out the transfer station, trying to get Cheryl up and running. I think they've cleaned up around a few of the green boxes and I'm not sure what they're going to do for Cheryl today.
There are more green boxes.
What's that?
There are more green boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, usually I just cut them loose with Cheryl and Cheryl knows exactly what he needs and how to get it done, so.
Fire patrol.
So we'll go from there. Yeah, I know y'all got the wonderful budget time here, so just wanted to kind of remind you about the quick little brief that I give. I don't know if Kevin's talked to y'all about the EMD that's going to be mandated down the road, so just gave y'all a quick little spreadsheet to give y'all an idea. Not this physical year, but just wanted y'all to know what was coming down the pike. Still haven't heard, with the state mandates that they're going to try to fund anything. Knowing the state, they won't fund nothing. So anyways, just kind of be prepared for that. And also, like I had put in a paragraph in my budget there, the current SRO grant that Shive is on will expire at the end of this fiscal year. We do have it for this current one coming up. And there will be no more extensions on it. We've had it for 4 years. So, keep in the back of your mind, once again, that's not this coming that you're working on, but, it will expire. So we've got to either look at, getting rid of an SRO position in the county or figuring out if we're going to fund it through county funds down the road. Other than that, things are going well. Just if y'all need anything, let me know. You got any questions? Or?
I just want to make sure I understand that SRO grant is good for fiscal year 22. This is the end of 22 it expires.
Correct. Am I wrong to think that? No. Now you got me double thinking.
We're good for the upcoming budget that we're working on.
Correct.
Okay. Fiscal 21, 22.
That's the way I understand.
Okay.
But that's
That's how I've got it in there.
okay. All right. Yes. So not anything.
Keeping you on your toes there, Brian.
I know Cindy always does that. She's great for it. That's for sure. That's for sure. That's what we're all here for, though. Anything else, or? All right. Well, if y'all need anything, let me know.
Apples get frozen out, or you good?
Not yet. It won't be long. We'll start. Looks like galas will probably start blooming here shortly, and I don't know that that's a good thing, but their cluster's starting to spread open. But I've noticed some wild apple trees around the county.
Oh, yeah, wild apples are all open. Almost all of them are open.
I got one in about 3 hours time started turning pink.
Yeah,
You could watch that thing.
Yeah.
yeah, with the way these warm nights have been, it's
Yeah.
it's all gonna come. It's gone. I know my bees are going crazy right now. They've got brood out all the boxes and don't have the ability to split this quite yet as much as I want to, but we'll get there. I'll check on yours too, Jeff.
You better, because I've been trying to get into mine for a week now. Coming up there yesterday to get into them. Somebody started hollering, I had to go the other direction. So
Yeah, sounds good. We'll get down there.
if we get out in time today before it gets cloudy, I may.
Oh, be a man. Go in there and do it while it's cloudy. No veil, no nothing. Just have that.
But like you said, I had one I thought was dead, that it's wide open. I thought it was rotted, but come find out, it was hid in there somewhere.
Yeah, keep them warm.
It'll keep warm, right?
Keep them warm.
Yeah, it looks like we should be all right with this little cool down. I don't think we'll.
No, it won't hurt, but I mean, you figure we still got, what, every bit of 30 some days left of frost zone for Floyd County?
Well,
Is it the 10th or the 15th somewhere in
fogs in
there?
February tell you they're frost in May, so we had at least 10 fogs.
And it's not unusual to have ice and snow at the end of April either.
That's
So,
Well, ice and snow is fine.
Yeah, it's that.
You know, it's the frost is what'll burn you up.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I take snow and ice over anything,
Absolutely.
you know, as long as it's not a whole lot, because then it'll break everything all to pieces, and you got a mess in the county, but.
Well, I know some poppers been put out, and that's unusual, but just early.
Things moving along, so.
Yeah, it's an early one. Absolutely.
All right, well, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay. We have 2 minutes to public comments, so if you would like to look at one more item before that. 7C, request for exemption to Floyd County Ordinance 6231C2, vision site distance requirements, setback for 2419 Kyle Weeks Road to be built a minimum of 20 feet from the edge of the roadway. You will see in your packet something that Mark put together for you all, which of course explains the situation and includes some photographs and an aerial view to help you understand the situation. You will see in the very last paragraph there that it is his personal recommendation that the county require that this structure be built a minimum of 20 feet from the edge of the roadway.
Yes.
Here we go, yeah. You know, I'll tell you, I read through this, I looked at this, 2419. Is this a house, do we know? A garage? I didn't see, I went over and over, it. What did I miss?
Somewhere in here says something.
I kept on looking and looking and looking.
Yeah, the last.
Yeah,
Oh, the last page, maybe that's one.
Yeah, the aerial.
12 by 21 garage, you know? Sometimes sometimes I'm very much traditionalist. We have a rule for a reason. And it was a garage, and it seems like they have enough room on it. We keep making all these exceptions. I don't know, but I guess we have a building inspector and he says at least 20, but.
Exceptions are pre-existing. I thought most exceptions we make have been pre-existing, not reconstruction.
Correct.
So that's what
On the homes.
on the homes.
On the homes or,
C1 was the addition of, what was it?
wasn't that over covered, didn't you do something with that pen? But that was an existing structure.
We've done porches and stuff, but
On Grants Lane, did you do an outbuilding?
that's not,
Yeah,
that's not a
there's
state
been
maintained
individual
road.
buildings approved.
But that was not a state maintained road.
Correct.
That was not a private.
This is a secondary road.
Yeah.
With another neighboring driveway,
Right,
is my concern.
Yes.
exactly.
I'd be inclined to follow Mr. Culture and this person.
But I guess the part is, I don't understand why it has to be built so close to the road. The lot has quite a bit.
That's what I said.
You know, one one thing that threw me was what Will put in here about backing on the state right away. I've never seen that before.
Are we not allowed to?
Backing for right away.
Now, I know the roadway is illegal to dig out, but if it's the right of way, that's set from the edge of the pavement.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yes. Yeah, I can see them backing into the road.
I think it's
It's just something I've never seen put
I
in
think
there
it's a
before.
COA statement,
Yeah.
just to be blunt.
Mr. Bolt will join us in a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, while we're waiting on him, we'll,
We got so many people waiting.
oh yeah. We'll go through the formalities now, so. I'll open the floor to public comment, and it is the intent that all persons attend the meeting of the board regardless of handicapping conditions shall have an opportunity to participate. If any person present requires any assistance, please let the board know in order that arrangements can be made. If you come forward, state the district you're from, your name, and limit your comments 4 minutes.
Becky Albersford, I'm here requesting assistance. I have a hard time hearing you all with your mask on. Could you please use the microphones?
We are.
Turn the volume up then, please. Thanks.
Anyone else? I just thought I'd declare the public comment closed.
Poor little car.
Now you know what to unlock, but keeps working good.
Yeah, I'll have to test it once a meeting.
Since Mr. Bolton hasn't been able to join us yet, would you like to move to item 7D, the school budget? So you will see this piece of paper in your packet, so front and the back. And request in the FY21, so current school year budget, for a revenue supplement in the amount of $149,820 from federal sources, so not a county request, federal sources, and an expenditure supplement in the amount of $77,166 going to instructional category from advancing computer science education for computer science integration into the classroom, and $72,654 going to the technology category from CARES Vision 2.0 competitive grant for Chromebook initiative to second grade students. And of course you see the documentation provided by Dr. Wheeler in your packet.
The floor for motions.
I'll move that we approve the request for the expenditures as detailed in the request.
The revenue and expenditures.
Yes. Revenue and expenditures.
Motion second, any other discussion?
And that is all flow through.
It is.
Just want to double check.
Yes, sir. So, Ms. Chair, Ms. Kuchenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Bolton has joined us. If you'd like to, Mr. Chair, go back to 7C on the agenda, the request for an exemption to the county ordinance for setbacks.
So, I got this request, about a month ago from, yeah, so I went out there and took some pictures and looked at the site, and they had some stakes pegged out there. They was holding it about 8 feet off the shoulder of the road, and I knew that wasn't gonna work, and So I got with Will Dotson, I said, what's your right of way out there? He says 40 feet, 20 feet center road. So I said, well, I appreciate it. Talked to him about it. He went out there and looked at it. And he says that they need to be able to back out and pull in out onto the road.
Right.
He said, you know, they don't like people backing out into the road. So I've been in trouble for a long time. But
You and a bunch of other people.
so I told Will, I said, well, with the site distance, because there's another house, I guess that's gonna be the south side on that road. Anyway, anything real close to the road is gonna cause problems for the neighbor. So my opinion is it needs to be at least 20 feet from edge of road if you want to give a variance. If not, I mean, I don't care, it's y'all's decision.
I'm glad you said interfered with neighbors, because that was the question I had, you know. I got confused on part of it, which is not hard to do.
No, because, I mean, he's right on top of the nose.
Yeah, right.
Right, that's what I was gonna ask.
So oncoming traffic heading towards his house, the neighbor down below needs to be, I mean, someone needs to be able to see if anybody else is pulling out below. So I feel like 20 feet would be approvable. That's just my opinion. Y'all the bosses.
What's the additional 15 feet? I mean, is it gonna cause much trouble to them to just stay within our rules?
No, I mean, they're going to do some bring some field material in and do it.
At 20 feet, are they gonna have to do that too?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, at 10 feet, they're going to start putting some field in there. They just want to save some money. I don't think nobody's saving some money, but they don't need, we need to keep the other people safe also.
Absolutely. And a rule is a rule is a rule.
Yes.
Apparently, that's coming out.
There is, as far as the actual land space, there's space there for it, it's just because of the topography of the land that's running
Yes,
across.
sir.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
I was looking at it and I was like, surely there's enough room there to put the building in, but from the pictures, it's hard to tell the lay of the land.
Yes.
You have a question? Thanks, sir.
All right, y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all with being available for us.
You're welcome.
So I missed what we got pretty much.
Yeah.
No district.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
Mark answered my question. I say I'm easily confused, but I'll concur with
Well,
what
the rule hasn't been changed yet. It's still,
correct.
I mean, it's talked about, include that in the
Right.
subdivision committee. And we have granted variances for a little bit different situations. So,
I don't know if you've granted a variance to save somebody or look gravel.
Right.
right, there's been
There's been other buildings in the way or
not enough room.
or connected to an existing building.
Yeah.
I know a church that we did an addition connected to. I'm just trying to think.
Or the only one on the road, you know, I mean, it was limited to not affecting anybody else.
Right. One church that we did, not before, maybe a while back, but the church out here in the Little River District. We granted a variance too, but that was an addition to an existing, like a porch on an existing.
Right.
we did the same thing in Congress Road to Harris Chapel. We were gonna put cover going in the front door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
No action's action.
Mhm.
No action is action.
Yeah.
But I think you'd probably want an answer, but
I think before I would be able to vote yes, I would want to at least drive by it and think it was a major inconvenience for us to build following the existing rules.
Even though that existing rule may change, and that's still subject to debate, whether it's gonna change or not.
Looking at pictures, I mean, the elevation's the difference, it looks like maybe
They're gonna have to do stuff anyway.
15 feet or something. Still.
Well, as he said, even if they got as close as 10 feet to the road, they're gonna have to fill.
Right,
The fill's involved no matter what they do.
gravel's gonna have to be,
Well, we can leave that to her and like, let somebody ride by for that too. And,
okay?
No motions in action.
Yeah.
Chris said.
I mean, I'm happy to vote this if you want.
Yeah, someone wants to help it when he's helping for it.
That's what you want to do.
That's why I asked you.
That's really Joe, if you want to take action on it. You're the fellow, you're just.
Just put it on a night meeting. I'd like to ride there too.
It is a little hard to tell the pictures.
Yeah, and those pictures are,
I'm a visual person, I have to see.
There's stakes there, that would be easy to just glance at and tell us the
I'll get 2 weeks is gonna.
All right, so, as Chair, we tabling this to return to it at the next meeting, the evening meeting.
You shouldn't
Okay,
take
and we'll
long.
move that to the next agenda. And we remind you of our guest request that you use your microphone. Indicated when asked, but it's still hard to hear you. So, thank you for letting me know that. Mr. Chair, your next item is 7E. Approval of resolution to appropriate the fourth quarter of the approved FY21 budget. I think I'll let Sue take any questions you might have.
We could save a lot of money if we just skipped this part.
Yep.
Yeah, sure would.
Shut down a couple of months.
Extended vacation.
Yeah, go on vacation.
Sounds better all the time.
Go encourage her.
Is there anything you, I mean, it's just straightforward, right? Nothing,
Forward, it's the fourth quarter.
Everything we've been doing.
yeah.
You know, do you see anything that, from what you've seen so far, that gives you concern?
It's hard to answer. I personally find it very difficult to read the financials and look at the percent remaining with it not all being appropriated, determining where we are at this point.
Correct.
It's hard to do it by quarter and
It's hard to
figure
do
out.
it by quarter and figure out. I have not had the time to sit there and really
Well, that's why I
analyze.
was asking, because it's hard for me when we do it by quarter to, because the percentage at the end is based on what you've done so far, not the entire thing. So,
Right, right.
And if I may ask the question again, I think I posed this maybe in February, something like that. It does appear that we have done relatively well, that are, the reason why we did the quarters was because we just didn't know, and it appears that things have done better than we could have hoped.
At the point we were doing the quarterly appropriation, and do I need to? At the point we were doing the quarterly appropriation, we really didn't know if we might be in a position of having to shut down government for a couple of months and actually laying off people or closing programs or departments. So at the point we did the quarterly appropriations, it was definitely the right move at that point in time. But as everything's progressed, and with the help of the CARES money and some of our revenue sources coming in as we had budgeted, and not much less than we had budgeted as we feared might happen, we've done fine this year, and I cannot tell you on a department by department basis, but overall my sense is that we're in good shape.
I think our department heads deserve a lot of credit on that because they did their due diligence on keeping that.
Yes, yes. I have heard from some of the outside folks, that we also help fund, that for FY22, if you all are comfortable, they of course would like to return to maybe not doing quarterly. Sometimes their expenses are not necessarily even. And so that leaves them, since a lot of those organizations are already fairly low in their cash reserves, that it's a little challenging for them. But they certainly understood and appreciated your doing it quarterly, given the level of uncertainty this past year.
Well, I was hoping we would go back to the way we were simply because of these reporting documents.
Same here.
So I know it sounds bad, but so I can follow it better.
Oh, I
I know y'all have the same problem, and I'm hoping that we go back to doing the full appropriations, and then that way then that percentage at the end will be based on the entire.
I think it was the right move when we did it.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was important that we be fiscally, conservative and cautious and prudent and all those words, because we really didn't know what June of 2020 was going to look like, or August, or whatever.
Mr. Chair, if you're ready, I'll make a motion.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion that we approve the resolution to appropriate the fourth quarter funds for the FY 2021 budget.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Ms. Kuchenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All right, thank you all very much for that. Your next item of business is 7F, approval of budget transfer of $10,147.89 from the contingency to appropriate line items to continue a one-step pay increase for county employees for April 1, 2021 through June 30, 2021. And again, I will leave Cindy as your expert for this.
In the previous months, I've been putting this line as part of the appropriation. Supervisor Yoder said he preferred that it be dealt with separately, so I just pulled it out of the appropriation. This is the same amount we did last quarter, and it's just recognizing that one-step increase that we implemented in December.
Anyone else have questions? Floor for motions.
I don't believe that we approved the transfer from contingency.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other discussion?
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Booth,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Kuchenberg,
Yes.
and Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All right, thank you for that.
And I don't know if you've noticed, the last couple of months I've done one new thing. Every time we have a request out of contingency, I'm giving you a growing list of how we're using it, because you always ask,
That's
what's
wonderful.
the balance, and what have we used it for in the past? So I'm just gonna continue doing that.
Yes, yes, please, and that shows us exactly how much is left.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Big help.
Very good.
I know math's good enough to.
Well, it's like every time we get an email or something, I'm like, where are we at?
Yeah, exactly.
That's nice.
You go digging back through
Yeah,
the
yeah,
emails.
yeah. It's nice to have a general idea.
All right, Chair, our next item is results from the mowing bid, and I think I might start this and let Cindy follow up a little bit. So as you recall, you had us go out to bid for mowing, and we expected to receive at least probably 3 we were hoping for responses, and instead we really got none other than the original one from who we were currently using, which was an increase over what they had been paid the previous year. And so we have kicked around internally the possibility of maybe taking this work in-house or something, to feel like, my recommendation, and then Cindy will tell you a little bit more about her conversations, but given the timing of, we're already in mowing season essentially. My yard got mowed yesterday. I will say that we will probably look at this for the coming year and think through what our options might be, but for this summer, it's probably a little late to do anything else. But Cindy's also reached out and talked to some of the other folks we thought might bid, and she can tell you a little bit more about those conversations.
When we put out the mowing bid, we specifically, we advertised it in the paper, had it on our website, but we also contacted the people who had bid last time to send them the bid specs. And when either one responded, I reached out and talked to both of them to find out why they hadn't. And what I was told by each was that they are so busy that they are not only not taking on new work, but they are dropping existing clients that they have more work than they need. So at that point, I began to feel very fortunate we have the one.
Yeah.
And that we weren't dropped.
We could buy some goats and go.
Yeah, I was ready to ask you, where you can find us some goats.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
All you do is let fans stand.
Yeah, you can bring some goats.
I'd like to have some goats on the courthouse roof. It'd be pretty cool.
Have a green growing roof.
Green
Yeah,
roof.
green room.
I mean, I thought, like, especially on the ball fields, you could fertilize and mow.
That would make the
It
outfield
would save so much
funky.
The field work would be interesting.
Yeah.
Kids are not the adults. Look up there and pick you.
Yeah.
Every time their kids on the farm, they just go.
Yep. It's like a magnet.
It's back in the old days when you pick up a neighborhood softball game. You never slid into a base, that's for sure.
You had to mark them real good, make sure you got the base.
So you need a motion to accept that? I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second, any other discussion? Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Booth?
Yes.
Ms. Timberlake?
Yes.
And Mr. Turner?
Yes,
All right, thank you. Guys,
of course, that's pretty good for our economy if they got so much work.
Sure.
It opens it up
Find help.
for competition.
That's that Bill said that. Yep.
20 years ago, every high school boy or kid out there would have been driving the mower and they won't know I'm doing it.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Chair, the next item is 7H, results from the recreation, thank you. Results from the recreation concessions request for proposal. Unfortunately, our response here was even worse. And we have no bids. None at all.
That takes care of itself.
It does. So, some of the options that have been discussed are, of course, having no concessions. Of course, that's an option. Talked about if the boosters might be willing to do that, or the only other thing Jacob and I could come up with, trying to think out of the box, is maybe if we specifically invited the convenience store owners in town and but especially the convenience store owners, since it's the same type of stuff they already have.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we get any takers, so even if we did that, we might want to get your sense on a plan B or what you all would like to do.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was all, sir.
I had one citizen suggest that we take and we put vending machines.
Yeah, I was
That,
the same
that
thing.
they were thinking that might be the way to go as far as drink, not major, but just drinks and snacks.
The problem is, probably 70% of the year, 60% of the year, there's not enough games there for actual vendors to be supported.
Right.
Football, for example, you have one game going on, you just can't, there's not enough food to be sold for that game. So I think vending machines for some of the year would be good. I mean, but you get into the softball season, baseball, and you've got, 12 games going through during the morning. There's enough there too. to support vendors, so I think I like the vending machine. I tried to get them put in when the authority was there, but I think there's gotta be, I mean, people won't more than a pack and halves if they've got ball games running all day.
Maybe we can check with the school contract and see what their vending operator is, and maybe the vendor can put, you know, they might want to piggyback off of that. I don't know.
Or to buy one.
Just buy one, I guess, I don't know.
That'd be more, that would make more money off of that.
Yeah, if we buy one.
It's very handy to, when you have multiple kids, for experience, playing games and just being able to get some nachos or a hot dog. Because the time you get home, get everybody moved around, there's no time for dinner, and kids are fussing. I mean, I'll spare you the stories, but it happens. The need is real to have some type of something, and I would like to see some type of actual concession, and I think I mentioned this before. I don't know the legalities or the parameters around it, and shooting from the hip, but could there be a way that the rec department established a program for a way for parents to be involved in lieu of registration fees, that they can volunteer so many hours and the county facilitate the concessions,
Buying the supplies.
buying the food. You know, the department, in my mind, would have to determine how many days that they would need, so they could determine how many volunteers that they would need. And the parents would have to agree to work so many hours in lieu of that registration fee for 1, 2, or 3, how many ever children. I'm not sure the legalities of that. I'm not sure how long you make that happen. But I think Mr. Yeager has said, since I've been on the board, he had a vision of trying to make registration fees more attainable for various parents. And I think that's a great way to do it. If the Commonwealth sees fit that folks can work off their charges or their fines and costs, then I don't see why we can't offer. It's a completely different theory. Please don't think that I'm criminalizing folks by no means. But I'm just saying. I think since that's open, I think we need to explore that and say, hey, we want your children to play. And if if it's an issue for you for registration fees, will you be willing to work and extend that out? Maybe this could be a pilot program. Extend that out to service on the fields, cleaning up trash, whatever, geared towards the rec program.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Justin. You know, back in the day, it was so much easier for folks to do this kind of thing because not everybody was, I mean, for years I ran the little concession trailer at the baseball games all the time. And I mean, parents would make chili and I would buy the hot dogs and get Slaughter's coleslaw and buy the drinks and the candy. And I mean, I sat in that, my mama sat there doing the concessions. You got to sit down and watch the game. So, but it's hard to do that anymore. And I think your idea is great. And I had said when it was still a recreation authority too about, you know, reaching out to church groups and, and like the boosters, scouts, yeah.
There have been church groups that have done it.
Yeah,
right.
That was something I'm sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but with the situation with COVID,
I know.
it's hard to get those groups to take on that responsibility. And also, if we do it ourselves, then we'll need the additional insurance.
Right,
Just like we were requiring for the vendor, we're gonna have to have the same policies and stuff, which I'm not opposed to. I'm just saying, just so we get the whole picture.
Yep.
And there's gonna have to be, there's gonna be somebody designated as the responsible party. Now, that may fall in his purview, but if he's got a tournament, a softball tournament or something going on, it's gonna be hard for him to be supervising in a concession stand and taking care of what's on the field.
Sure.
In an email, just I think it was yesterday, he said one of his part-time workers, Angel, was willing to kind of coordinate this if we could get people to do it.
I mean, just speaking from experience of a family I know, registering to your children, and then how it's so convenient to have to change stamps for bats. It's easily to spend on 2 kids near $200 for registration plus equipment. And, you know, that's difficult for some folks. And so I think anything we could do to make it available would really be beneficial. And there's the human component, though. I'm not sure how many people are willing to work, as we talked, but it sure is a lot more appealing if you could waive those fees for so many hours.
If you were gonna be able to, you were coming to the game anyway,
That's
take a
right.
child, come in and work for during the
Like I
game.
said, that's what I used to do.
There, you know, there has to be some creativity on the, in my opinion, the department's perspective of working with those parents of maybe, when possible, facilitating their service hours and need to come 2 hours before your game if you want to watch, and being clear about that. So parents don't expect, hey, I can work and watch. That may not be the case. You may have to, if you want to do that, we're going to have to schedule you 2 hours before your game start. So there's going to have to be some creativity there, but I think it's possible.
There was one thing that I was gonna ask about, because I don't know if we can do it or not. When I was having options, I had a couple that, they did my concession for citrus, roses, is that what you said? And, you know, everything they made, they, you know, donated to them, and then I would kick in a little bit because they was helping me out. You know, I wondered if we could get an organization like that, because, I mean, they love doing it if I had a big option where it was their wow. And
I meant to say one other thing, and then I'm done. Is that it may be beneficial also to explore the civic groups and organizations to have as a backup. You know, should volunteerism may not work.
Yeah, the 1 year that was correct that while I was there, that we were the most successful with what I thought were the most successful in as far as just concessions during the baseball and softball season was when we had one person that was an actual employee or a part-time employee that was actually paid to be there. They had hours. We set something, they were expected to be there. It wasn't a volunteer, they was an actually paid person. And then we supplemented them with volunteers, but they were in charge of scheduling the volunteers, they were in charge of getting the supplies, they were in charge of, if nobody else showed up, at least you had one person that volunteers didn't show, at least you had somebody there half hour before the game to open it up. They were in charge of keeping it clean, in charge of, you know, you had actually an employee there that was in charge of all of that, and that made a big difference. The other years when it was all volunteer stuff, even with church groups, there were games when no one would show up because it was all volunteers, and then they had other things going on at the last minute, and they weren't getting paid, so they wouldn't do what they had to do. And so when we had one employee, and it cost about half of what the concessions made, but it was worth it because
Well, that's what I was wondering. I bet you could probably get to a place that this could self-support itself.
it could. Yeah, it could. If you had all paid employees, I don't think it would. But I think if you have one person that's paid and then supplemented, it will fill. There's games you could make a lot of money.
I was just
Yeah,
about
that
to
person
say,
needs
these
to have
tournaments,
some knowledge of what they're doing.
Absolutely. The person we hired also worked at a convenience store in town, in a deli, so they knew everything, knew where to get supplies, it was just working.
I bring that up from when you said the part-time person. We need to make sure that whoever's overseeing this, the responsible party, does have some idea or some experience.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking that person, but
I will say that there is with the tournaments and everything else involved, and I agree with you, just that I have sometimes 3 children in a game as well. And I know exactly what you're talking about. But the money that can be made, I mean, what we used to bring in for baseball over the course of however many years I did it, because even after there was the gap between the kids, I still ran that concession, and I bought hot dogs on sale, I bought buns on sale, I got soda when it was 4 for $12, which every once in a while, my downstairs basement was full of soda. I mean, it was full of soda, but, 4 for $12, that's a case of soda, I mean, it was really cheap. So there's a lot of money that we can make for the department that could go back into the department. And in your response, Justin, to help offset sort of like scholarships
Yeah,
for
sure.
registration, so, yeah.
One
Not
kid
to
told me,
belabor the point, Chairman, but there is a lot of money to be made.
a lot, you got a family with more than one child, you can't just buy one of them one
Uh-huh.
No.
I go down to Sam's and buy all the candies on sale in bulk and.
I'll just say, the one thing, we thought that when we had soccer, that it was gonna be, because there were so many people there, that we thought soccer was gonna be a big concession time, and it wasn't, because most of those games were time games for an hour. So the parents would come, they'd be there for an hour and then leave, and they'd go somewhere else and eat. But baseball might be a 3 hour game.
Baseball, softball,
Baseball,
yeah.
softball, completely different animals. So soccer, there was so many, there were people coming and going. Nobody went to concession because they were there for only an hour and then they left again. But baseball and softball were a longer tournament, so that was where the
And I think
football was just not enough people there, and they were all inside the fence. They had to walk so far, and it just didn't work.
I think that goes to the planning too. The director plans the games right and at the right time.
With baseball and softball, the year that worked really well was I did all the scheduling, and we had games starting at 9 and we go till 9 at night.
Yeah.
And so you could have somebody there, and it was every game in the county on Saturday, we tried to get into that park and direct all the money into our concessions. And I made a huge difference.
Just move along, Mr. Clark said, anything else?
No, I think we-
so-
You know what to do.
I'll find Jacob and we'll be back in 2 weeks with the plan, how's that?
Wow, 2 weeks, that's good.
With the plan, so all I have is fixed, but we'll
I
plan.
thought they had it all fixed up.
Right.
Nothing else, Mr. Clark, all that, good seeing you again.
Good to be here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Actually, for me, it's good to be anywhere right now because I have had to be not anywhere for 14 days.
Yeah.
That's no fun. So yeah, it's good to be back. Some of the maintenance things we've been working on, I'll start with that. And it's been kind of all over the place on maintenance. We're trying to gather up all the debris from the storms that we had in February and everything. And they think they've made good progress on that. In fact, we had some help coming in from some other counties to help them on that. Still some to do. Working the gravel roads in the spring now that we've got some decent weather to work on those gravel roads and have it stay instead of getting scraped off or washed away. It's been good. I won't go into the routes that we've worked on because there's been lots. We did do some pothole patching on Oxford Street here in town, Daniels Run. Fairview Church in Conner Grove. We worked on some shoulders on King's Store and on White Oak. I think we got that spot on White Oak. I haven't been by to look. I told them, I think they got the tree on 615, but I'm not positive. I was going to come on that way, but I forgot. I was running late. I may go back and take a look at that.
Yeah, I'll have to go back to.
I'll go back that way right now. Yeah. Believe it or not, but actually we've been working on some dust control. We've had some calls on some of the gravel roads. So yeah, that's already started. Some ditching, some pipe cleaning. We got some work planned on Good Neighbors Road, drainage project on that. We worked on a sight distance issue on Indian Valley Road. That's about, like I said, it's kind of been all over the place, trying to catch up on all the various little things. We've had some decent weather. Except for the hail, that was actual measurable hail.
Oh, yeah.
That was a crazy storm.
Right,
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get more of that. We're working on parking at the courthouse. I think we've got that planned out. He's going to end up losing a space there, but we will have the handicap spot in the more convenient spot. The bridge, there were some questions, and y'all have heard about this, about the Montgomery, but it's at the very end of 615 at Pilot. That low water structure there is going to be replaced next year around this time. There will be they'll work on it one lane at a time and have a traffic signal, temporary traffic signal there instead of the detour. So, because the detour has been crazy. Yeah.
Good gracious.
So that will be a temporary signal.
No, I cannot imagine that.
Yeah. Along with some of that, and I don't know the date on this one offhand, but we'll also be replacing the bridge at Goose Creek, and that will be a detour. There's no way to keep that open while we do the bridge at Goose Creek.
Wow.
Yeah.
The low level one or?
Yeah, the one down below. Down close to Charlottesville Pike.
Oh, right, that's.
Yeah, right in there.
At Charlottesville Pike?
The narrow one?
I'm not sure which one, I don't know if
There's
it's,
three low water bridges, and then there's the narrow one where you first enter.
I think that's the one,
Okay.
right there.
It'd be nice to have a little wider.
Yeah, I'm not sure how, I'll have to look at that.
No, the other one is.
Taking a truck across, I just have to take a fire truck
Yeah.
through there. You feel like you're.
I'll get the exact structure on that. Again, I don't think that will be until,
Because that other one was falling apart, that next one you come to, that low level one is, got a real issue.
and you say low, and that's not like a low,
Low water, not an actual bridge, a low water.
oh, it's just piping the concrete on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the one, because
There's
it's
three.
being run out of our bridge office, and they only have certain structures, certain major
Right.
structures.
The actual bridge is the.
Wow, that'd be amazing if that gets
It's
replaced.
got a little wider, that would be nice.
Anyhow, we got time on that, and I'll get the details, as far as when it's gonna, I can't get but so specific on the details, because they usually let these in several structure contracts, and the contractor can choose which one he wants to do first. He's got a window to work with. Anyway, I'll let you know on that. And we will be starting, we've actually already done some work on it. One of the secondary construction projects is Roger Road, just doing a half a mile of that. But we're working on getting the work started on that here pretty soon.
Can, somebody tell me when the trees are coming down on that one?
Okay.
I've had some people ask. So if you make a note to.
When
send
our
me
trees
an
on
email.
that, they may have already done that.
Oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
have they good? Good.
Hope they got everything they were supposed to. They're coming back.
Yeah.
And the paving schedule is out, the overlay schedule. That's all I have is the asphalt overlay schedule right now. And we'll be doing some of Barberry, White Rock, Indian Valley, and then some on Route 8 and on 221. Part of Route 8 is going to be at the southern end of Route 8. So like about 2 miles from the Patrick line back.
Take care of that curve.
And about 2 miles of 221 from the south end of Dobbins Creek Bridge to, what is it, about a half a mile north of Route 824. I don't know the name of Route 824, but it's 2 miles in there in the Dobbins Creek Bridge area.
Slaughter's to,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Slaughter's to south, yeah.
yeah.
804 is over right there about the cannon factory, right?
804, 824.
824.
820.
I don't have the name of that.
Oh, that's how you said.
Big way.
Mill Pond.
No fun.
Yeah, that's a long strip.
District Road, CW.
Yeah.
Well, that is a long.
About 2 miles. 2 miles.
That's like
It's right here.
Still getting all the attention.
I tell you what, Camp 5 South, Camp 5 North,
Yeah.
you know, he's pretty rugged.
Anyway, that's the news on construction, the overlay, and kind of the here, there, and everywhere on the maintenance things. Trying to catch a little bit of all of it. So that's all I have as far as an update. Oh, we got a public hearing coming up. Yeah, we should plan a public hearing.
And you're advertising that at
Yes.
7 p.m. on 27.
Yes.
Have we received a new printout of the 6-year road plan?
I'll send a draft plan. It'll just be last year's plan. minus whatever's
been took off, but updated numbers as best as, as far as.
Yeah, it'll include the construction budget for just next year, which is, construction budget is just the allocation. It's been a bit less than, at least in the other counties. I haven't done the comparison yet. But Pulaski's was about a third less in unpaid road funds.
About a third what?
About a third less.
Less.
Less, oh, less.
Yeah.
How about that?
No, 1/3. I think they were at 300, now they're at 200.
I don't think anybody had any left.
I believe they're taking their third to give it to us.
Maybe that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, I'll take any, if the board members have any other requests or anything, I'll be glad to
Start with Mr. Coleman,
at least make a list.
I appreciate the work. They did a great job on that safety project on Indian Valley Road. Looks really, really good. I think it's going to help people turn in there, so I appreciate you guys taking care of that. I mentioned some concerns to Mr. Stowers last week, and I failed to do one I just wanted to mention. On Allen Ridge Road between Dusty Rock and Lester Road, I know that's a pretty big span, but you can't miss it. Where they're boring under the road, it appears to me that they didn't bore deep enough, and now on both lanes, it's pumped considerably. And it's, all the way across both travel portions of the highway. So I think that before they get going, and there's a couple other places that you can feel that that's, excuse me, that's the worst. So if you could maybe check that, and I don't know if they're responsible for fixing that, but it'll jar you in your vehicle. So I think that's the only thing I needed to check. Like I said, I've already mentioned everything else to Mr. Stowers, so glad you're well, and appreciate you being here.
Usually I can't wait for last.
We'll get you out of
You'll
here.
also be last too.
You'll also be
Just want to please pass on, thanks for the work on Route 8, getting those filled as well as the others you mentioned. It made a real difference. I had been in discussion with Darrell for Law Ranch and Wills Ridge intersect. Just talking about possibly putting a stop bar and moving it back, since none of that seemed to me might be a little bit of brush blocking that site, but I think he was going to try and take care of it and get that took care of, but all that structure and everything's actually back on the person's property. Do you know, and I apologize, I hadn't been out there, have they put the stop bar in yet, or do you know?
Probably not, no.
Not yet, okay.
A lot of they don't get to that pavement marking until later on, though.
Okay, all right. The other thing, have you had a chance to review the pictures that was sent on the situation down here at Fox?
I've seen them. I've just seen the pictures and the video, and we'll have to just kind of figure out what can be done about that, the drainage, if there can be a drain put in.
Well, it appears, I went down there not during the hail, but the hard rain after the hailstorm, and look, it appears the water there on PM gathers, and over time, the whatever ditch, if you're coming from Route 8 on the left-hand side, the ditches have pretty well been filled up. And it looks like the water's actually running up on that handicap ramp and following the sidewalk around. I believe if the ditch was reestablished on that side and carried around the curve there where the two intersect, maybe up above where the handicap ramp, that would catch a lot of the water. And I don't know why they didn't do it. I know you didn't engineer it, but there's a driveway right straight across from this house, pretty well straight across from this house. It looks to me like the water that was shooting down through there is not catching in the ditch on their side. It looked like it should have been a drain put in that driveway similar to what was done up on Oxford, up on the upper end, but it wasn't done. I take it that they've had problems there for quite a while, but after the sidewalks went in, it's really intensified. I think they put a drain in their yard trying to take care of some.
Yes, picture the drain.
And they actually, when they had their driveway repaved, they actually raised the pavement up themselves on theirs to try and shoot it off from driving straight down the driveway, but the slope of everything. And if you would look at it, there was a mention, and I haven't had a chance to talk to the town, but since they put that sidewalk in there, there's a problem with two cars passing each other without getting into their yard. The sidewalk evidently it took up part of a little bit of the road.
Yeah. Or people tend to just scooch away from it.
But anyway, maybe take a look at the width there. There may be another option of directing that just one way and not making it a two-way. Also during all this, I got to noticing on this end of it, the project where they put the sidewalks and they put the little cross bridge in, you got handrails everywhere except for the cross bridge that crosses that little deep gully down here on the end. Yeah, I don't know whether it's the town or the VDOT, the contractor or whatever, but it's a deep enough property. It looks to me like there ought to be handrails on that little bridge.
I mean, it's a town project and a town grant, and now we're in charge of maintaining it, so. Well, I don't know about the sidewalk. I don't think we maintain sidewalks. I think we just maintain the road part.
Well, maybe check into it and see if it is part of y'all's maintenance, so there's a liability waiting there to happen. Yeah, I mean, with handrail everywhere else, but just crossing that bridge, there's no handrail on either side of it that I can see. And if it does fall on y'all, then I would think, if it is under your care, and I say y'all, I mean BDOT's care, then there is a distinct problem there just waiting to happen. So, no, that's good. Thank you all for what you do. Glad you're feeling better.
I feel great. Thank you.
I also extend the well wishes that you are back to being well and feeling good. Yeah, on the ice storm brush, I've had a couple of people, Thomas Farm, 615 still has it. I mean, the major travel road is still encumbered with brush. So, not that any other road is any more or less important, but yeah, let's try to get that. I've been out on Bethlehem Church and Huckleberry Ridge the last couple of days, going back and forth to a couple of things. Been on Bethlehem Church, cutting over to 221 for a couple of appointments, and Bethlehem Church is in pretty rough shape. I mean, not just those areas, those two areas where the road is falling off. You said you had fixed White Oak?
I
saw two flags by it. Maybe they're going to attempt to do something.
Maybe they haven't done that part. They just did it. It was under shoulder work, so I thought that meant they'd done that little bit.
White Oak Grove is mine. Did you say White Oak Grove or Red Oak Grove?
White.
I'm getting Red Oak. Yeah, White Oak Grove. Yeah, so I saw two of the orange flags, which meant, oh wow. And I saw them this morning, and I hadn't seen them the last couple of days, so I guess they must be getting to
maybe that's maybe they're getting to.
All right. And then Red Oak Grove is also, and that's that whole Bethlehem Church, like Huckleberry Ridge, Moore Road. Somebody called me about Moore Road too. It's that whole area. There's just a lot of rain's been falling. It washes down. There's the creeks in the area that lead to the river. I mean, there's just Laurel Creek on the other end. There's just been a lot of, I mean, I know our roads are impacted by water. Huckleberry Ridge leading down into Camp Creek. If you would please just see about patching. I mean, there's a couple of holes on Huckleberry Ridge that, I mean, you could lose your tire in. And Red Oak Grove has some real issues. Yeah, in one spot it is about to turn to gravel. And that's a cut road from Moore to Bethlehem Church, but it's well traveled. There's a lot of folks, a lot of cars. Yeah, I was just about to say, on Dobbins Farm Road, there's a lot of, folks down there. Yeah. So, I don't mean to complain, but that whole quadrant.
We didn't mention Fleeger, and I drove through that, and it's about the same.
Where is that?
Fleeger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I grabbed that little bit.
And where is the information? Is it on your website about the pilot bridge? Old Pike Road Bridge pilot?
Probably not.
Okay.
It's
If there's anything you can get to me, I'd be very interested to read up on it. I mean, I've been crossing over that bridge for 38 years. I know there was a plan back some time ago where they were gonna put it across to the west through
This is
that.
gonna be in place, and it's replacing the pipe with, I don't know how many, but it'll be with, concrete box culverts.
Ah, so it's just gonna stay in place. Will it be raised up any?
You can rate, I mean, I think they're trying to increase the capacity, but you can only raise it so much because you still gotta tie into Pilot Road.
Right,
So,
so it's just gonna be a better system. Okay, so the rain tries to
Capacity
take
is
it.
not necessarily our problem.
I know. All right, anyway. Thank you again.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm done.
All right. Couple things, there's still a tree down on 221 North at Bear Ridge that's, kind of this folks, there's a lawn there that is still a state, right away, a large tree that probably needs to be moved at some point soon. Had a request for dust control in Bear Ridge, some houses on the, not on the 221 side, on the other side. There's a string of houses there that said they were getting really dusty. I know it's so early. I had somebody on dirt road ask me about if y'all put up, I know it's 35 miles an hour on all roads, do y'all do any speed?
no, it's one of those kind of, it's statutory 35 by state law and all. Kind of like the road's not posted, it's 55,
Right.
kind of thing on the secondary, same kind of thing. It's
I
not
thought
posted.
that's what I told her, but I said I was tired, I told her I checked.
And the reasoning, I think, is that they just made 35 an absolute max, but you still, because their conditions are so variable, generally if you're supposed to speed limit, you're telling people it's safe to drive this speed.
Right.
And you can't really say that on a gravel road necessarily by putting it at 35.
Right.
So, I guess the implication of that is, of it being exaggerated, that you're responsible for driving due to the conditions of the road, but under no circumstances are you go over 35.
Right.
That's basically what a statutory
Right.
35 or 55 say.
Yeah, in this case, they were fine if people drove 35, it was just unfortunately they seemed to be driving a lot faster, she thought.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so I told her it's probably more of an enforcement issue than a sign issue.
Yeah.
So I directed her to call the sheriff, but, I mean, not that, maybe more patrol or something that for the individuals that were habitual offenders there might slow down, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of ideas. I told her I didn't think we had any signs we put up, but I just wanted to check. This isn't my district, this is Jerry's district, but, I'll jump over there if that's okay.
All the help I can get.
I rent some land down in, on the other end of Buffalo Mountain Road, right at Parkway. And that section there is in really bad shape, right where it meets the Parkway. It's got a lot of potholes coming down the woods there. I could definitely use some work. Pulling a cattle trailer through there, I keep finding, I'll dodge him with the truck and hit everyone with the trailer.
And going, whoa.
And then the other thing I was just curious about, I hadn't bothered you because I knew you were out, but is there a way that you or somebody from the office could meet, some of the folks down on, the project down in my district? Ponderosa.
Yeah.
I've had multiple calls from folks down there wanting to talk to somebody maybe in the evening. I don't know if,
Yeah.
I'd be available about any time, but there's a lot of questions. I think they just feel better about it if they can meet somebody and
Yeah,
talk.
so that generally works out better, This is our chance to do it kind of thing, but, everyone wants to make sure it's done.
Right, and there's a lot of
Correctly,
concerns about speed and how the road would be built, stuff I can't really answer necessarily.
So, that'd be good. Before we proceed on, we're gonna make sure, because we're gonna need some donated right of way and some of it, if we get it, then
I
we'll
think
move to
we
another
can get
spot.
more, I think some of it, we can get more of it donated if we just talk to them and calm some fears. So, would you want to give me send me a few times that it would work for you? Or
Yes, I'll
someone
check.
who- I'm not saying that's to you.
Yeah, and I'll probably will go, I'll bring Chris Price with me, who's, kind of our designer for these unpaved road projects. He's been working, he's talked to a lot of people. We have a guy in our office named Don Dora, who, does a lot of the face-to-face talking with people about the project and what right-of-way might need to be donated. And of course, we're dealing with the parkway as well.
Sure.
It's gonna be, yeah. And that piece between the parkway and, the other road, has got quite, I mean, there's quite a little curve going down there in a drainage
Yeah, that's true.
area right there. That may be the more difficult part. It probably gets more traffic.
It does. It gets much.
Yeah.
That's all.
But it's gonna be a more difficult one to build.
Right.
And you're dealing with the parkway.
Always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to be able to do that in the next 2 weeks before.
Yes.
6-year road plan, that way we can kind of nail down what's gonna happen there.
All right. Yeah, I'll get a hold of you and find out when Chris can make it.
That'd be great. Yeah, there's a couple people that work during the day, so evening would work best for them, but I don't want to push y'all out either.
Yep, not a problem.
I just would like to get that kind of squared away if possible. Thank you.
Thank you for going up our Shewer Road, marking that right away for me, because put a little question I did. I haven't had any calls since I've done this. But, Thomas Gap Road from Route 8 to Fairview Church. The lady called, she said that one hadn't been machined since last fall. It's got a lot of limbs and a lot of limbs hanging down. It's hit vehicles and they got to have some attention on that. And then Springdale Road turns off Route 8, goes up, puts in the Thomas Gap. Mr. John Getgood, he said, you get up on that road, you'd like to talk to him. But there was 2 trees near his house on the state right of way. One of them fell over his fence. He said, you know, he cleaned that up, fixed his fence, no problem. But he said, there's another one. It's leaned over about a 45-degree angle. And he'd like to have some help, you know, to cut it. And this storm that came through Saturday night seemed like that thing run on the parkway. And it ditched the roads, you know, where it run across. And I was wondering if that could get machined.
That's Springdale?
Springdale and Tuggles Gap. Yeah. That storm late Saturday night to come through, it dumped some water along there.
That is quick.
How much?
It was almost an inch. It was quick. And
I
the
believe it's
winds
more
were
like a
really.
foot.
Sounds
Well, it falls in 15 minutes, it feels like it.
It does feel like a foot.
Well, my house, it rained for about all night. It came in waves.
It was weird too. The winds were twisted type sounding winds. Strange sounding winds.
Yeah, a friend of mine lost 75 foot of roof off his 186 foot barn, brand new barn.
It was a strange wind.
Yeah. But anyway, if you could get for Mr. Getgood. And I got a neighbor that's got questions on the road. Sometime you're over here, you got about 10 minutes. If you give me a call, I'd like to meet you and show you what he wants. He won't accept my. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we can do, but he wants to hear it from somebody with a higher pay grade than mine. And I had a question on talking about the bridges. Just as you go into Wells, there on their side of the elementary school, but there used to be Goat's Garage. Is there ever any plans to replace that bridge?
They have it on an inspection schedule, it may be on a longer, window replacement, but almost every old bridge we have is being planned on replaced, just a matter of when.
Well, years ago, there was a fatal wreck there, and then right before I retired, I worked a fatal wreck there, or helped work a fatal wreck there. And if you'll notice when you come down from the elementary school towards Wells, when you get right at the bridge, it sort of kinks back to the right. And I noticed the other day they was putting the side back on the bridge, and that makes about third time in the last couple of years I know that side's been, big trucks come down through there and the tractor makes it around with the bed down. If they meet in the car, they don't have much choice, on that bridge, so. And it's always been a concern of mine if maybe that in the near future could replace that bridge and maybe straighten it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that bridge has been there since I remember. And, like I say, there's been a couple fatal wrecks on it. So.
I'll see if they have it on, because they've done, they did the other one, and they got one, the culvert getting ready to get replaced on there with the signals up, and I don't know when they're gonna do that. That signal's been up for a long time.
It's one of my old ones. It's narrow both ways. But other than that, just the rest of my district saying, where's the motor graders at? I said, behind the preposition at, because, you guys are covered up.
They'll make it around.
And like I say, 221 from Old Camp 5 all the way to town, I mean, that road's just flaking up. It's getting pretty rugged coming down through there. 10 12 tires on my truck rides hard. But I appreciate everything y'all doing. Like I say, I'm glad to see you back. You didn't get hit any worse than what you did.
Everything's going great. Appreciate it. I'll see you all up here.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Rose, if you don't mind, we've been doing that for a couple hours.